of this crisis. HopeInACrisis.com. You can also reach it by going to sharelife.today. Share it with a friend and bring hope in the midst of the storm. HopeInACrisis.com. Well, hey, everybody, I'm so glad that you are here. We're going to start in 2 minutes, so just hang around. 2 minutes. Well, you just saw a picture of Will. He's in the control room. I'm here in the studio. I'm John. We're ready to broadcast in 1 minute, so just hang around. 1 minute. It is 5 o'clock, and we are broadcasting live from Asheville, North Carolina. Hi, I'm John Sorensen. I am so glad that you're here, that you made the time to join us to find out what's going on with Evangelism Explosion. I hope you're doing well. We're certainly doing well here at EE, and we're doing all that we can to serve Christ in these days. I've got some really great interviews today. The first one is with Art Hallett. He's the director of our prison ministry here at Evangelism Explosion. And the second is with Tom Mangum. He's our senior vice president for organizational development. Now, you'll remember that 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that we're really interested in any ideas that anyone has for how we can witness, how we can share the gospel, how we can train people to witness online in these days. So if you have an idea, please share it with us. Either put it down in the comments or message us so that we can share it with others. And we're excited to do that. Now, just this last week, in fact, I want to show you a fun picture. This is Tony Linjama. You remember he was on about a month ago, and he was doing an online coaching session for a friend of his who lives in Israel. Can you believe that? And then right after the coaching session, Marcus, his friend, goes out on the street, gives away free pins, and then the free gift of eternal life with people. And this guy right here, he's sharing Jesus Christ with them. Isn't that exciting? Well, I got to tell you what, we are having a lot of fun working online in these days. Now, what about the broadcast? Well, this last week, I'll just show you a couple of things. This is the EE site. We had 13,000 some people just on the EE site that interacted with us. A little over 5,000, 5,500 who watched the show. On my account, another 6 or so, or 5.5. So about 12,000, a little bit under that, people who watched the show last week, and literally from all over the world. We had people from the Philippines, Nepal, Argentina, Mexico, Kenya, Ethiopia, Bolivia, on and on. Biggest country? Remember last week I asked you that question? Well, I can tell you this, it's a different country this week. The biggest country, the most watchers came from, ta-ta-da, Indonesia. That is really exciting. Now, last week I started to show a comment and then I forgot to. I want to show it to you this week. This is from our friend Fide, who comes from Madagascar in Africa watching the show. He said this, he said, I'm going to say that EE is my life. I'm leading a church. Now, this guy used to be a field worker on staff with us. He went out and planted a church, and today, 10,000 members right now. Can you believe that? I'm leading this church of 10,000 members right now, and we have 4 main services every Sunday only because of the lockdown. We have 7 worship services instead. So I'm using my EE method to reach out to many souls, and sometimes on my sermons. God bless you and your ministry. Needless to say, you are family. Well, you know what, Fide? You're family, and we're glad that you're here and part of the ministry of Evangelism Explosion. Now, a little bit of news. Let's just step into what's going on with the coronavirus this week. Sadly, we've passed the 5.9 million people mark for those who have confirmed cases. 380 or 58,000 who have died. And so, as we've said it every week, we really need to be in prayer for these families, folks that have lost people due to this virus. And you all well know that there's a very real difference between people who are Christians who face this kind of thing and people who are not Christians. We've heard over and over again that people that are not Christians are really lacking peace in their life. And so what can we do to help them? Well, the answer is obviously share the gospel. And each week I show you these tools and I remind you of them. We have our Go 2020 training. I currently have a team right now. You can go on this page and you can create your own group. You can take this course with your group. You can invite your friends to come on and join you in the training. And I've done that with my church, and I think we have 12 or 15 teams, something like that. Well, I have a team, and each of my trainees are going through this program. I would really encourage you to look at it and do it. I've told you each week about our Hope in a Crisis website. You can share this with your friends, and by doing so, share the gospel. And then I've told you about our What's My Story website, where you can put up your own story, and then you can share that with others. And so we've got lots of opportunities for you to learn how to share the gospel. Now, Randall Wood told me today we're going to have another online training. I don't have a date yet. So keep watching. One of these days, next week perhaps, I'll be able to tell you about a date that we're going to have for our next online training that you can join. We had some wonderful folks that joined us for a 3-hour workshop a few Saturdays ago, and we had a lot of fun doing that. All right, now, we've got a couple of really great interviews for you today. In fact, I'm going to show you a website. This is a website that you can go to. It's eeprisonministry.com, where the folks are going to put the link in about how you can register. We've got a wonderful a banquet without food, bring your own food, banquet for the prison ministry. It's happening this Sunday night. Well, to talk about it a little bit, and then also just to talk about the ministry of EE Prison Ministry here in the United States and literally around the world, we have the privilege of having on today the Reverend Art Hallett. Well, what a privilege and an honor today to have Art Hallett. Art is the director of our prison ministries for the ministry of Evangelism Explosion. Now, before you tell us all about the prison ministry and what's going on, let me ask you this. Art, how did you get into this? When did this occur that you got interested in doing prison ministry with EE?
With EE. Okay, well, the pastor of our church, who became the new pastor of our church, came out of EE International, Dr. Dave Clippert. And when he came, he brought EE to our church, trained me in EE, and my wife and I were ministering in the inner city with Youth for Christ, volunteering, and working with dysfunctional homes and children. And my wife had a cousin who went to prison. Oh. And her aunt was elderly and asked if we would go visit him.
Yeah, wow.
And it turned out there was a local prison ministry that I said, can I go in there with you guys to visit this guy? And they said, sure. So I went in, and they were having a special program. They asked me to sing. I sang, and the prisoner said, will you come back without them? And so I did, and that began prison ministry because I kept going back and back and back, and Jill and I went back. So.
And God really gave you a passion for prison ministry.
Yeah, yeah.
Art, I've known you a long time,
yeah,
but I've never known you not to be the guy going into the prison.
Right.
And so I've always known that about you.
Well, when you look back at my past, everybody that I grew up with, except for 2 guys other than myself, went to prison for something. And my mother put me in the military when I was 17, which saved my life.
Wow.
Because had I stayed there, I probably would have ended up like those guys in the wrong car, doing with the wrong person type thing. And so it really burdened me that so many of my friends were incarcerated. And I remember when I would fly home from the military, I would have just a burden in my heart, a crying in my heart saying, God, what can anybody do about this? This is crazy. I never thought that he was going to use me to get involved with, this type of thing.
Isn't that funny how God does that?
Yeah.
He burdens your heart, and then you cry out, somebody's got to do something. And then you look around, there's nobody else, so I guess I'll go do it.
There it is.
Well, I got to tell you what, I have been so appreciative watching you do ministry in the prisons for over the years. And I love prison ministry as well. Yeah. And I've been part of it everywhere that I can be. And because I believe God does things in people's lives to get their attention, to shake them up a bit and say, look up, you've messed this up. And by the way, we all do.
Oh, yeah.
I was in a prison one day, and a guy said to me, really got a hold of me and said, but for the grace of God, you'd be here too. And I said, I was indignant. How can that be? He said, you tell me the truth. He said, right now, has there ever been a day when you got so drunk as a young person that you can't remember how you got
There
home?
you go. There you go. Yeah.
And I go, yeah. That was before I was a Christian.
I got you. Yeah.
That was before I was a Christian. But
Your BC days.
and he said, "Look, only by the grace of God you didn't run over somebody.
Right.
Only by the grace of God."
Exactly.
He said, "I did."
Yeah.
He said, "That's why I'm here."
Right.
And he said, so I think we have to. And by the way, doesn't the Bible tell us to care about those that are in prison?
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm glad he put it in there.
Yeah.
Because, for the world, prisoners is out of sight, out of mind. And for that matter, for the church as well. And I'm so thankful that God said in Hebrews, do not forget the prisoners, but you are to treat them as if you yourselves are prisoners. Had that not been there, we would have had all excuses why we shouldn't go visit the incarcerated church.
Well, here's what everybody listening, you're from all over the world. And by the way, you've gone all over the world to help start prison ministries and whatnot. Here's the question. Why does it work so well? Why does doing evangelism explosion in the prison make such a difference?
Because the tool that God has given Dr. Kennedy is a tool from God. Doesn't matter where you are, it works. And it's a tool that helps an individual to clearly understand and know what the gospel is, and then it gives them the ability to articulate it to someone in a non-religious way. I mean, it works because EE works.
Yeah, and what is your vision? I know you work mostly here in the United States. You travel all over the U.S., and God gave you a vision, right, of getting into every state of the nation. Now, it may be that God's given you a little pause button here. You wanted to have it done by the end of the year, but we've not been working the last 4 months, right? I mean, we're doing work, but we're not doing the thing we want to be doing.
Right. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, right now, the prison doors are closed to all volunteers, so we can't go in. But fortunately for us, our evangelism tool has been packaged into a DVD-based curriculum that's college accredited. So we have DV-based, all levels of our EE training. So we don't have to be there. Right now, we have inmates facilitating the training. We have chaplains facilitating the training. I'm doing the teaching on DVD, but so we're still going, unlike a lot of other ministries. But yes, God gave me a vision that we would be in every state in 20 years. Now, I came on staff with EE 20 years ago.
Wow.
And we've been working that master plan for the past 20 years. Great. And to date, we are in 41 states. So we have 9 more states to go. Now, with the coronavirus deal, this pandemic, this has sort of changed things. However, I still think it can happen.
Okay.
Although I don't think that we're going to be able to get back into prisons this year anytime, we can mail our curriculum to different prisons. And we've already started a process of mailing our package to different prisons and then assisting them through the telephone and that type of thing. So it's a self-contained package. So we still can accomplish our goal if God wants it to happen.
Yeah, amen. Now, look, those of you who are watching, you maybe don't know this, but you all have prisons that are around you.
That's right.
And you know what it takes? It takes caring. It takes getting involved. It takes calling the chaplain of the prison and saying, can I help you? Can I bless you? Can I be part? You could pay for the DVD series that Art has and provide it to the chaplains.
That's right.
And you could make a difference. And so many times it's probably one of the loneliest jobs on the planet Earth, right? And they're just looking for somebody to care and to reach out and to create bridges. I'm going to tell you something that you guys aren't going to believe. I've been at the banquet that Art does, and there are prisons that let their prisoners out of prison to come to his banquet.
That's right.
And then, because they know they're coming back. And that's the thing. They've seen the life change that has happened within the lives of these men and women.
Right.
And Art, I've seen it too.
Yeah.
And it is something to get excited about. Now, this year, you're not able to do the banquet because but we're going to do something else. Tell me about what we're doing.
We're going to go live. And we're going to do a webinar, a live stream. We'll be on YouTube, Facebook, and some other platforms. But this Sunday night at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time, you can click onto my website or onto the website of EE International. My website is prisonee.org, www.prisonee.org. You can click there and register and get on and see us. But we're gonna have former inmates will be talking. I'll have Dr. Dave Clippert who will be sharing about his impact in my life. We'll be hearing from Jennifer Kennedy Cassidy. Dr. Kennedy's daughter will be speaking. John, you're going to be there.
You're letting me show up.
And my boss, Randall Wood, is going to be hosting with me, and Jill will even be there as well. Awesome. So it's going to be great.
Now, do you have some singing and all that? Are we going to get to hear from your
absolutely.
group? Now, you guys showed up at your church, right?
Yeah.
And spent some time getting that recorded, and so you are going to get to experience Art Hallett.
That's right. And soul.
And soul, that's right.
And not only Art Hallett and soul, but in this DVD clip, we will also hear from female prisoners who the warden brought to my church so that they're performing in concert with me.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. You don't want to miss this. 5:30 Sunday night, your chance to attend a prison banquet. Bring your own food. BYOF. And we'll put it right now down in the Facebook link. As you're watching this right now, you'll be able to see that. You can click on it, you can register, and you can attend. And Art, this is, even though, it's not the way we wish it would happen, it's an opportunity for people to attend the banquet that have never had that chance.
Right.
I've already talked to some folks that are in Canada that have signed up, and they're going to watch. They're going to watch the banquet. Yeah. They've wanted to come for years and haven't had the chance.
Right. I've had the same experience from people internationally. But I was just talking to my office assistant, and she goes, "You know what? There are so many men and women who have been released, and now I'm getting calls that they're going to be registering for the banquet." So we have former inmates who are going to be calling in, and now they get to participate after all these years. It's going to be great.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it. 5:30 Sunday night. Please don't miss it. Now, Art, I know I hate to put you on the spot like this, but to close us out, I want you to sing something for us. Now look, Art, certainly this is what he could do for a living, but God's called him into the prison. And the cool thing is that he gets to go into the prison and sing, and all kinds of folks will come that are not Christians necessarily. They'll come just to hear Art sing because he's got such a beautiful voice. So whatever's on your heart, whatever hymn, I know I'm just calling you off the top of the cuff, but what do you got?
All right, let me see. He touched me, oh, he touched me, and oh, what joy that floods my soul. Something happened, and now I know He touched me and made me whole.
Well, you're going to want to come
Amen.
Sunday night and hear Art with his whole group and with the music and all that. But man, awesome. Really enjoy. How can we be praying for you and for the prison ministry? What you hope is going to still happen this year?
Well, just continue to pray that we will get into all 50 states, and ultimately we want to be in every nation. We're working towards that. Just pray for the inmates and their families, and pray for those who are released.
Yeah,
95% of the men and women who are incarcerated get released.
Yeah.
Only 5% stay in. And that 95%, they're going to be your neighbor, they're going to be my neighbor, they're going to be in your church, in my church. And when they get out, especially those that have been impacted by our ministry, right now the national recidivism rate is about 85% return for those who get out, and within 3 years they get back in. But we've been collecting data, and the statistics of our database for individuals that go through prison EE and are impacted by our ministry, we have to date, currently, a 0.5% return rate. Wow. And so we need to pray for those who are returning to society. You're going to hear from some of those. Some have gotten their master's degree. They're growing. They're actively engaged with the police force, trying to help the communities that they came from. And so we need your prayers for them and for how God is going to use them with their abilities to share the gospel in every venue that God gives them.
Yeah, amen. Well, let's do that. Let's commit to do that. Thank you, Art.
All right.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you do not want to miss it. It's this Sunday night, 5:30. We're going to put on there the link. You can sign up. It's absolutely free. You can come and get next to Art, doing it online, and learn about the prison ministry, and you are going to be blessed. I'll be there. I hope you show up, and you'll get to be part of it as well. Now, in our second interview, I'm really excited for you to get to hear from Dr. Tom Mangum. Tom is our Senior Vice President of Organizational Development. He's got this passion for raising up leaders literally all over the world. So let's hear from Tom Mangum. Now, Tom, I'm trying to think of things that would perhaps surprise people watching. The first one that I think would surprise people is that while you look very American on the outside, and you're actually Asian on the inside, I would say. Is it fair to say that you've lived overseas longer than you've lived here in the States?
I calculate I've probably lived in Asia about 38, 39 years, and compared to about 24 years in the U.S.
Well, amazing. And so, Tom, what was it that drew you overseas? What was it that caused you to be a missionary for so many years?
Interestingly enough, many of us know that Ravi Zacharias recently passed. Well, he was teaching back in the early 80s at the Alliance Theological Seminary, and I was a student. And the first year he said, "Tom, I want to send you to the Philippines, and you can do some evangelism there." It never happened. The second year he said, "I'll send you to India, and you can do some evangelism there." And it never happened. The third year, I had some connections with Indonesia, and I went to him and I said, "Dr. Zacharias, I've got some connections in Indonesia. Would you allow me to go there and do some evangelism training?" He said, "Okay, do it." So I put all the logistics together, and I was able to go to Indonesia. And that was where God just very clearly directed me to shift from being a pastor in New York to being a missionary in Indonesia. And I came back to the U.S. I said, "Barb, how would you like to go to Indonesia?" She said, "I thought you were going to say that. I'm ready." So,
well, Barb is a sweetheart, and well, that's exciting. And then you raised your family over there, and then you lived in Malaysia for a while as well. And now the reason I bring that up is because you're responsible for leadership development at Evangelism Explosion, literally finding those new runners that are going to run the race with passion and perseverance. And so, I just didn't want people to think, oh, well, that's a very American kind of thing to do. We're in the process of raising up leaders literally all over the world. Tom, what is your vision for leadership development in the ministry of EE? What are you guys up to?
well, in the past, the Great Commission was described as world evangelism, discipleship, and reaching the least reached people groups. And leadership development was almost seen as a secondary priority, or maybe even an unnecessary distraction. But you look at the example of Jesus. I mean, he spent 3 years doing leadership development, which he then left the church in charge, or the disciples in charge of developing the church. So my desire is to see leaders who become like Christ, because Philippians 2 clearly describes we are to follow his example and be like Christ, and also to have a transformation in our lives so that we see that the needs of others, and there is a ability to assess the needs of others and then meet those needs. So we're trying to develop leaders who are like Christ and others-centered.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And you're working with a pretty small group of people at the moment, but that is just so that we can prove all the ideas. I mean, I wish there was just a model we could go grab from somebody else and just employ in EE, but it really is an unusual idea that we're trying to birth and to grow. And I've seen West leaders that then kind of force themselves on the East, and I've seen East leaders that kind of force themselves on but it's really hard. In fact, I'm not even sure I'd go so far as to say perhaps impossible to create, I mean, before now, to create this movement that's genuinely all these believers working together, building up the body, serving the Lord in these rather impossible places. I mean, we're talking about the 1040 window. We're talking about many challenging places for the gospel to go forward. And yet, as you said, really, it's the leader that's going to make the greatest difference 20 years from now, right? I mean, that's why we're investing so much in this.
Yeah, there have been writers who say there is a leadership crisis in Christian organizations or churches. And I think the crisis is that we tend to look for the wrong kind of leaders. We call for someone who has the answers, who makes decisions, who has strengths, who has a map for the future. But I think instead of looking for saviors, that's a small s, saviors, we should be looking for leaders that will challenge us to face problems that there's no simple answers. So it's solutions aren't painless. They're sometimes painful to make a change, but we need to be able to learn new ways. And so we're looking at trying to develop leaders who really can see the value of other people's perspectives. That's that cross-cultural dimension. So we're not carrying our own desires the way we would do it in our culture and foist it or force it on others, but see the value in others' cultures, take that into account, and help then develop the leader within that context who is Christ-like, which is universal, not specific to any one culture, and then help them to develop their covenant relationship with God. And what I mean by that is that whatever challenge or crisis comes, they see it as part of an opportunity to grow, not to run from. And so we don't want our leaders to, as soon as they develop a crisis, start looking for another ministry, but to see that as an opportunity to grow, and also to develop a healthy environment for growth for all leaders. So these coaching sessions that we do is to help them meet those goals.
Well, it's a big task, and we really need to pray for Tom and for Barb and for the whole team that's working on trying to create this coaching environment, this leadership development core process within the ministry of evangelism explosion. And so, Tom, good on you, and I'm going to be praying for you that God will really use you as you create this model. And, for the layperson that's watching this, it's literally employing within our ministry the kind of thing we do in our ministry as we teach and train and mentor and model for others how to witness. So we want to be able to mentor and model how to grow as a leader. And some of us, many of us, especially those that are in leadership in EE, could all point to somebody and say, this person had that effect on my life, or this person had, we're trying to systemize it to where it's not just by accident, but it's happening on purpose all over the the world. And just, we want to become the most leader-rich organization on the planet Earth. And so pray for Tom. In fact, Tom, let me ask you, what prayer requests would you have for our group here today? How can we be praying for you in this process?
We have been 1 year into this program, the Transformational Leadership Process, TLP. So we're 1 year into it, and we want to develop a strong base. Dr. Kennedy and those who developed the EE ministry from the start, they said, don't start large, start small and build strong. And so we're trying to do that through leadership development. So you could pray that as we move into the second year, we've developed a strong foundation. Now, what do we do next? How do we begin to roll this out in the continents and in the nations? And so pray that we'll be able to really be discerning and wise in how we begin to reproduce this throughout the nations.
Yeah, amen. Well, just for fun, since you lived in Indonesia, and actually there are a lot of Indonesians that watch this, say something to your friends in Indonesia watching today.
Well, Indonesia or Malay is the same language, just slightly different accents. And then we spent a year in the Philippines. So I'll say something in the Filipino or Tagalog, and also in Indonesian.
Go for
My
it.
Tagalog is terrible, but here you go. Magandang umaga po, or magandang hapon. And then for my Indonesian friends or those in Malaysia, selamat ketemu. Kami sangat senang bisa bertemu lewat internet dan harap Anda akan berbahagia dalam Tuhan Yesus.
Speaking in tongues. All I know is Indonesia Baga Dunia. That's all I got. Indonesia for the world. Well, thank you, Tom. God bless you as you keep serving him.
Thank you, John. God bless you, man.
It is really fun to see the kinds of leaders that God has given us in the ministry of Evangelism Explosion. And literally, they're all like that. I mean, amazing folks. And so we're so grateful to Tom and his leadership. And again, we want to be a great organization for raising up leaders around the world. Thank you for the comments. Joel has already said, I'm signed up for the prison banquet and excited about it. Others are commenting too. Thank you for registering. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday night through this different venue. And thanks for being here today. Next week, we'll have an exciting show. I'm going to have Robert Foster. He is our director for EE Brazil. He'll be talking about what's going on down in the largest country in Latin America. And if you've not looked at a map, you should. I mean, by far, this is a massive country that Robert is the director of. And then also, I'm going to try to get Sammy Mitrofan on from EE Romania. And you guys, you've heard me talk about some of the stuff that the Romanians are doing online, which is what we're talking about. How can we use online right now for witnessing for Jesus Christ? So those will be our interviews for next week. And thank you so much for joining me. God bless you this week, and may he continue to bless you as you serve him.